So Tulsi Gabbard raises concerns about Hinduphobia in America, and the liberal response to her basically proves a point. Let's talk about it. My name is Sham Sharma. Welcome to the Sham Sharma Show. Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Sham Sharma Show. Thank you very much for joining me today. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate you. So Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard recently called out Hinduphobia in the United States, and she said that she has faced this Hinduphobia in both of her campaigns for Congress and during her presidential run as well. She said, "Unfortunately, Hinduphobia is very real. I have experienced it directly in each of my campaigns for Congress and in this presidential race as well. Here's just one example of what Hindus face every day in our country. Sadly, our political leaders and media not only tolerate it, but foment it." She's 100% correct. Mainstream politicians in America are instrumental in creating this atmosphere of hatred against Hindus, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But let's talk about Tulsi Gabbard first, because it's very fashionable to hate her. She's like Dave Chappelle at the player haters ball.
Oh man, hate.
And the hate towards Tulsi Gabbard really exposes the sort of hypocrisy of the liberal brigade in the United States and in the West in general as well. You know, liberals in the US always tend to say that we must support women, we must believe women, we must support minorities, especially women of color. But you know who should not be defended, and in fact, you know who should be attacked? Hindus and other dharmic communities that support them. Despite the fact that Hindus are some of the most well-educated and well-to-do ethnic groups in the United States, they're peaceful, they do not join any gangs or anything like that. They come to the United States and they work very hard because they believe in the American dream. They believe in the ideal that anybody can come to the United States from anywhere and work hard, put their head down, and make a meaningful life for themselves. But despite that, Hindus have been targeted for racist attacks ever since they came to the United States. In the 80s and the 90s, Hindus were attacked by this racist group called the Dot Busters, who used to single out Hindus and attack them, as a result of which many Hindus were savagely beaten and an Indian even lost their life. After the September 11 terrorist attacks, many Hindus and Sikhs were savagely attacked as well, even though no Hindu or Sikh or Jain or Buddhist had anything to do with the September 11 attacks. It's like if a snake bites you in the swamp somewhere, you go home and beat the shit out of your cat. It makes no sense. So despite Hindus generally being at the end of people's bias in the West and at the end of attacks in the West, now they're being painted as some kind of fascists. So what these liberals have done, and what a certain section of the Islamic community in America has done, is they've used Narendra Modi as like a scapegoat to be able to attack Hindus in America and in the West. And now they're doing exactly that with Tulsi Gabbard as well. For the longest time, the mainstream media and the liberal journalists in America have spread misinformation about India, spread misinformation about Modi, and used Modi basically to spread misinformation about Hindus. So we all remember when the United States cancelled Modi's visa over the 2002 riots in Gujarat, where the Supreme Court exonerated Modi. But the United States did not cancel the visa of any other political leader that belonged to the Congress party, under whom hundreds of riots have happened in India in different states as well. None of those leaders' visas were cancelled, but only Modi's visa was cancelled. Why? Because those leaders are considered secular. So because Modi has been demonized, because Modi has been painted to be such a fascist, Tulsi Gabbard is also now attacked because she has a good relationship with Modi. Do you know who else had a good relationship with Modi? That's right, Barack Obama. He even wrote a testimonial for Narendra Modi in Time magazine. So let's all start calling Barack Obama a fascist as well. No. We're not calling him fascist? Man, the rules of this game are really confusing. See, again, like I said before, just like Zionism is used as an excuse for anti-Semitism in the United States, Hindutva is now being used as an excuse for anti-Hindu bigotry in the United States. Because obviously, Hindus do not deserve a homeland. Christians can have dozens of homelands, home countries. Muslims can have dozens of home countries, but Hindus do not deserve a country where they can maintain their own culture. And the liberal brigade basically proved Tulsi's point of Hinduphobia by the way they attacked her. So there's a magazine called The Print that attacked Tulsi by basically publishing Twitter responses to Tulsi's tweet, where people were calling Tulsi a fascist and a Hindu terrorist. The great liberal outlet BuzzFeed responded, saying Tulsi Gabbard's tweet about anti-Hinduism in the West is stoking anti-Muslim sentiment in India. What? It's laying on more awake. This BuzzFeed article also shares tweets from a Christian supremacist and a homophobe who's trying to smear Tulsi. The article also tries to paint the violence in Delhi as a Hindu pogrom by saying that Hindus are responsible for the violence and that bodies are still being recovered from a drain in the neighborhood where worst of the violence has occurred. The thing that they don't tell you that the first body that was recovered from these drains was of a Hindu Intelligence Bureau officer who was dragged out of his house and murdered by an Islamist mob. This article also does a very clever thing by trying to call the RSS a Hindu supremacist group and saying that this Hindu supremacist group supports Tulsi Gabbard. Now, it's a very smart thing that you're trying to do if you're trying to create a certain image in the mind of the average American reader about the RSS, because when you hear supremacist, you immediately think of white supremacists. So when you say Hindu supremacist, you immediately create the comparison between the RSS and the white supremacist groups in America. So it's a very clever thing that they did.
You think you're too cool for school, but I got a news flash for you, Walter Cronkite. You aren't.
But white supremacist organizations in America and the RSS are chalk and cheese, because if you look at the statements made by the leader of the RSS about how Muslims are part of India and they should be loved, about how the LGBTQ community are part of India and they should be loved, about how there can never be a Hindu nation in India without the Muslims being part of it. Can you ever imagine any white supremacist saying that about black people? So look at the way they're trying so hard and they're bending backwards so hard to try and smear Tulsi Gabbard, the first mainstream Hindu candidate to run for president of the United States, a woman of color, an ethnic minority, and all of these people who love talking about intersectionality and about supporting minorities. What do? They all come out to attack her. People have gone so far as to call her sexist names such as the princess of the RSS. An Indian organization called The Quint also posted an article about her where they also quoted that same Christian supremacist, homophobic, Hinduphobic activist, and they tried to say that Tulsi Gabbard is a fascist because some Hindu sounding names supported her and donated to her campaign. This myth was very well busted by the co-founder of the Hindu American Foundation, Suhag Shukla. She said Tulsi Gabbard raised $12.6 million this election cycle, but yeah, focus on some Hindu Americans that together donated a little over $100,000, which is less than 1%, and argue that Tulsi, a woman, is speaking for her male Hindu masters. So she's being smeared, she's being maligned just because some of her donors have Hindu sounding names. It's amazing. Can you imagine people doing that for Bernie Sanders? Because many Muslims donated to Bernie Sanders. Can you imagine if people started saying to Bernie Sanders that just because some Muslims donated to Bernie Sanders and Muslim sounding names may have connections to Hamas and Hezbollah and terrorist organizations like that? Can you imagine how outrageous that would be? But in Tulsi's case, that's not considered outrageous. That's considered completely normal. These bullcrap claims were also shared by a top Democratic leader, Khanna, who shared these smears and called these smears an important article. This is a guy that is a big leader in the Democratic Party and is a Hindu himself. So this guy's just out there selling his soul to get a better position with the Democratic Party and ingratiate himself to the top leadership in the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. And let me show you how else Hinduphobia exists in the United States as well. When it came to the discussion around removing Article 370 in Kashmir, nobody talked about the Hindus of Kashmir that were ethnically cleansed by their Muslim neighbors. Everybody talked about the Muslims and what problems the Muslims are facing, but nobody cared to discuss the 400,000 Hindus that were ethnically cleansed from their ancestral homeland and were given the option to either leave, convert to Islam, or die. And to this day, they're living as refugees in their own homeland. 30 years on, Hindu politicians like Pramila, Jaypal and Khanna themselves spoke about the problems that the Muslims are facing, but not a word about the problems that the Kashmiri Hindus are facing. Mainstream Democratic politicians like Bernie Sanders, like Ilhan Omar, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez openly shared misinformation about Article 370 in Kashmir, openly shared misinformation about the recent violence that had happened in Delhi, trying to paint it as a one-sided pogrom by the Hindu community against the Muslim community, which is absolutely not the case. See, the thing is, the reason I keep talking about this is because this kind of bias and this kind of misinformation can have real world consequences for Hindus in America, which we can now see because there is now a petition against a staffer of Joe Biden to get him fired from Joe Biden's campaign simply because this guy is a Hindu and happens to like Modi. So because such misinformation and such hatred against Hindus is being normalized by the top leadership in the Democratic Party, it's creating real world bias against Hindus in America, where people are now at the risk of being fired from their jobs for their political political opinions. And you have organizations like the Council of American Islamic Relations that are raising concerns about the Biden staffer. The irony really should not be lost on anyone, because there are people associated with CARE that believe that the Jews should not have a homeland, that believe that Israel should not exist, that believe that Israel should be removed off the face of the earth, that support terrorist organizations like Hamas. And then no liberal goes to CARE and questions those people that are associated with CARE, and they're happy to call Tulsi a fascist, and they're happy to call Modi a fascist. So ignoring the plight of Kashmiri Hindus, asking people not to vote for any Hindu candidates in the primary elections, lying about the Citizenship Amendment Act, lying about the BJP and the RSS, lying about the recent violence that happened in Delhi, I think it shows plenty of evidence of anti-Hindu bigotry that exists among the liberal circles and among certain sections of the Islamic population in America. And the worst part of this entire situation is that these liberals who keep saying that we care about women, we believe women, especially women of color, they don't give a shit about women. They only give a crap about women that agree with them. In other words, they only care about compliant women, and they only care about submissive women. Independent women who have their own minds and that are willing to think for themselves are terrible, and we must put those women down. For all the talk of liberalism and for all the talk of feminism, that's pretty sexist, isn't it? And I want to ask you as well, do you agree with Tulsi Gabbard's claim that there is anti-Hindu bigotry in the United States? Let me know your thoughts and comments in the comment section down below. Once again, guys, if you liked today's episode, if you think that this episode needs to be seen by a lot of people, then make sure leave a like, leave a thumbs up, leave a comment, engage with the show. The more you engage with the show, the more likes and comments that you leave, the more YouTube puts it in front of other people as well. Also, if you like the Sham Sharma Show and you'd like to support the Sham Sharma Show, you can click on the Patreon button in the description down below, become a patron of the show, get the Sham Sharma Show mugs that are going to be shipping out this month as well, and you can get access to the WhatsApp and Discord servers of the Sham Sharma Show as well. Also, if you like the Sham Sharma Show, if you like the English content that the Sham Sharma Show creates, if you like this new English channel, and if you haven't subscribed to the English channel already, well, what are you doing, man? The button's right there. Just click on the button. It's right there. Make sure to press the bell icon as well. And we have a video here and a video here that you should really go check out as well. I'm sure you'd like them too. I will see you for the next episode. And until then, stay happy, stay healthy, and I'll see you guys soon.